September 1965. War had returned to the Indian border. In the fields of Punjab, the sound of artillery echoed through the air. Villages emptied, soldiers prepared for battle, and among them stood a quiet man from Uttar Pradesh. His name was Company Quartermaster Havildar Abdul Hamid. He wasn't a famous general. He wasn't born into privilege. He was an ordinary soldier, a husband, a father, a man who had joined the Indian army to serve his country. But within days, he would become one of India's greatest war heroes, because an enemy force was approaching, and it brought with it one terrifying advantage: tanks, dozens of them. The battlefield was near the village of Asal Uttar. Pakistan had launched a powerful armored offensive. Their Patton tanks were considered among the most advanced tanks of that era. Massive, heavily armed, built to crush everything in their path. Many believed they were unstoppable. Indian soldiers knew the danger. If those tanks broke through, entire defensive positions could collapse. Fear spread across the battlefield. Because how do ordinary men stop steel monsters? But Abdul Hamid never focused on what the enemy had. He focused on what needed to be done. Mounted on his jeep was a recoilless gun. It was effective, but against heavily armored tanks, the odds were terrifying. Even so, he prepared for battle. As enemy tanks rolled forward through the fields, Abdul Hamid waited, patient, focused, watching every movement. He understood that one mistake would mean death. He allowed the tanks to come closer. Then he fired. The first enemy tank erupted into flames. The battlefield froze. It wasn't luck, it was skill. Before the enemy could react, he repositioned, moved quickly, disappeared among the fields, then struck again. Another tank destroyed. Confusion spread among enemy ranks. Who was attacking them? Where was the fire coming from? A single soldier was turning the battlefield into a nightmare. The fighting intensified. Explosions shook the ground. Smoke filled the air. Enemy machine guns searched desperately for the hidden threat. But Abdul Hamid refused to stop. Again and again, he moved his jeep, found new positions, waited for the perfect moment, then fired. Each successful shot boosted the courage of Indian soldiers around him. If he could face the tanks, then they could hold their ground too. The impossible slowly became possible. The advancing enemy began losing momentum. Their confidence started to fade, because every time they moved forward, they risked becoming the next target. One man had changed the spirit of an entire battlefield. But heroes rarely choose safe paths. By now, the enemy understood they had to eliminate him. Their attention shifted. Their guns searched for the soldier who had humiliated their armored force. Still, Abdul Hamid stayed. He could have withdrawn. He could have sought safety. But others depended on him. His country depended on him. Spotting another enemy tank, he prepared to fire once more. The battlefield exploded around him. Then came a fatal moment. Enemy fire struck his position. The impact was devastating. He was critically wounded. Yet even in those final moments, his thoughts were not about fear or survival, only duty. He had done what many believed impossible. He had stood his ground and fought until the very end. The Battle of Asal Uttar eventually became one of India's greatest victories during the 1965 war. Enemy tanks littered the battlefield. The offensive had been stopped, and among the stories of courage, one name stood above the rest: Abdul Hamid. For his extraordinary bravery and selfless sacrifice, he was awarded the Param Vir Chakra, India's highest military honor. But medals alone cannot explain who he was. He wasn't the strongest man on the battlefield. He wasn't protected by powerful machines. He didn't possess impossible strength. He simply chose courage over fear, duty over safety, service over self. Today, decades after the guns fell silent, his story continues to inspire generations, a reminder that true heroes are often ordinary people who make extraordinary choices when history calls upon them. Abdul Hamid did not fight for fame, he fought for the soldiers beside him, for the people back home, for the country he loved, and when the moment came, he gave everything he had, because sometimes the greatest warriors are not remembered for the battles they won. They are remembered for the courage they showed when defeat seemed certain. One man, one jeep, against enemy tanks closing in from every direction. And even today, India remembers his name. Company Quartermaster Havildar Abdul Hamid. A soldier, a hero, a legend.